The unsurpassed, perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see it, hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. So this morning, I wanted to offer some reflections on gratitude. Gratitude is considered the hallmark of Soto Zen. We even have it enshrined in our bylaws, that this is one of the fundamental teachings and practice of the Monzon line, our particular lineage. And it's woven through our training like a gold thread in a tapestry. It's like a baseline or the measurement for, or purpose for measuring something. But there's a pun there because it's also like a baseline in a piece of music. It's just there, always grounding the practice. Then the melody, we may be practicing loving kindness or equanimity or one of the four wisdoms, but gratitude is always there. It's this kind of underlying foundation. When I was a young monk, one of the seniors recommended making an index of references to scriptures, that we wanted to remember. And I did that for a while. And so what I offered this morning is some of those things that I remembered. And let me start by saying gratitude is a practice. It's not just a feeling. It is something that we do, just in the same way that we practice compassion, even though we may not feel compassionate, or we practice wisdom, even though we may not feel very wise. We can practice gratitude, even if we don't feel grateful. One of my favorite stories of Reverend Masters is the story of the monk who kept disrobing, and he did this 5 or 6 times, and finally, the final time every time he came back, he would say, I'm just so grateful to be here. I just feel so grateful to be here. And after the 5th or 6th time, Reverend Master Ji quipped, well, just remember that the next time you want to leave. Okay? We can be grateful even if we don't feel grateful. Although gratitude is considered one of the hallmarks of Soto Zen, it's not something that we invented. Okay? It's there in the old scriptures, in the Pali Canon. In the numerical discourses, there are a number of places where the Buddha recommends gratitude. In one place, he says, there's 4 qualities that lead to heaven. And those are the first 3 are the good conduct of body, speech, and mind. And the 3rd is gratitude. And the way that the scripture is translated, it says that we are deposited right there. It's a little ambiguous whether it's talking about heaven as a future rebirth or heaven in the present, but it can mean either. And I'd like to think of it as right here. When we practice gratitude, we bring heaven here. Okay. He also said in a similar short sutra that the person who practices gratitude is wise, competent, unmaimed, good, unmaimed, and uninjured, blameless and beyond reproach, and that they generate much merit. Okay. Another place, and the numerical discourses is the one where everything is arranged by numbers, like 3 of this and 4 of that, 6 of this other, and so forth. So there was another scripture he did where there was 5 qualities needed for samadhi, the jhanas, or meditative absorptions. Okay, and most of the qualities were generosity, a counter to miserliness or stinginess, but the 5th one again is gratitude. So gratitude is essential for us realizing any bliss, if you will, any happiness, Gratitude is one of the components for creating that. He also said that gratitude is one of the elements for any of the stages of arhatship, whether it's stream entry or a once returner or a non-returner or a full arhat. Gratitude is one of the components that is involved in realizing any of these stages of enlightenment. I find that gratitude is a protection, and it's an antidote to all sorts of negative states of mind, whether that's despair or fear or worry. It's incompatible with the three poisons. Okay, it's very difficult to be greedy and generous and grateful at the same time. Okay, gratitude is a component of generosity. Likewise, in regard to hate or ill will, it's hard to encompass that kind of hate and ill will when we're grateful. Okay. Likewise with delusion, seeing things as they are is brought about through gratitude. Gratitude is a component of wisdom. Again, there always is this underlying foundation. And likewise the precepts. It's unlikely or perhaps even impossible to simultaneously be grateful and act against the precepts. Whether it's in regard to killing or stealing or sexual misconduct, or you can work out the rest for yourself. It's just kind of something to reflect upon is when we practice the precepts, gratitude is an underlying component there that helps us keep those precepts. Kohozenji, Reverend Master Jiu's master in Japan, called gratitude the natural duty of a human being. Okay, it's something that's already there. It's not an add-on. It's something that we uncover and is already there as part of our Buddha nature. In Soto Zen's small book that we published some years ago by Kohozenji, he says, the right place here, he's talking about cause and effect, in that that to live peacefully is due to outside support and to social blessings which we enjoy. Therefore, it is the natural duty of humans to express their gratitude for these benefits. Not to know gratitude is to be on the level of an animal. And some animals are the exception to the rule, but I think you get the point. We are dependent upon many factors which, when combined, enable us to live. We can only live peacefully so long as this is true. We must concretely express our gratitude for the great favors of the Buddha and ancestors, who may clear the way for us to understand ourselves. Shinran Shonin was another one of the great teachers in the period in which Dogen lived, or shortly thereafter. Shinran Shonin declared, "We must recompense the Tathagata for his great compassion, no matter how great the sacrifice. We must recompense our teacher for the knowledge he or she has bestowed upon us, no matter how great the effort. An understanding of the law that all things arise from a cause will awaken within us a deep sense of gratitude toward the world, and will lead us to the practice of benefiting others, for it will enable us to see to what extent we enjoy the benefits of others." He also said, emphasizing faith. He starts with Dogen. Dogen's emphasis on the realization of one's innate enlightenment. He says that's an example of a teaching based on faith, that we have the faith that we are already enlightened. We just have to uncover that. We just have to realize that. Kohozinji writes, "It is no exaggeration to say that the peace of mind, which is the object of our tradition, is impossible without faith." And he quotes Dogen, "Where faith appears, the Buddha and ancestors appear. And the way to dispel illusion can only be found with the help of correct faith." And then he quotes Kazon as well. And then Kohozinji says, "But what is this correct faith? We think it consists of three things: taking refuge in Shakyamuni Buddha, practicing serene reflection meditation, which is the realization of our inherent enlightenment, and religious training, which is the expression of our gratitude." Turning now to, again, the words of Dogen, in the instructions to the chief cook, he explains that there are three minds to be fostered by the chief cook and all the other temple officers. And the first one is gratitude, also sometimes translated as joy. One translation encompassed both of those by calling it appreciative joy. Okay, joy and gratitude are, if not synonymous, they're right there in the same ballpark. So Dogen writes about the chief cook. "Three attitudes of mind must be cultivated by all temple officers, in addition to that of the chief cook. These are gratitude, love, and generosity. The mind of ecstasy expresses gratitude. If we were to dwell in heaven, our joy would be so excessive that there would be no time whatsoever for us to either train or awaken the seed of Buddhahood within us, and we would never prepare food for the three treasures. There is nothing of greater value or excellence than the three treasures. They far surpass the greatest deity in heaven, both in value and excellence, as well as equally surpassing the highest upon earth." He continues, "We are fortunate in that in this life we have the opportunity to offer pure food or pure service in any way to the three treasures. How lucky we are, how blessed is this body. For all eternity there will be no greater opportunity than that offered to us now. Its merit is undefilable. When we serve our fellow trainees purely, hundreds and thousands of lives are enfolded in one single day's or hour's work, which will bear fruit for many lives to come. To grasp truth thus clearly is to express gratitude." We have another little saying in Soto Zen, which I think is Kazon, but he talks about our daily life should be employed in the constant practice of gratitude. Like a ceremony of daily life, a ceremony of gratitude in our daily life. Dogen also talks in the Shishogi about gratitude. The fifth chapter of the Shishogi, which the Shishogi is a compilation from Dogen's teachings in the Showa-Genzo. But the fifth section is entitled "Putting Teachings into Practice and Showing Gratitude." And those things are really shown to be synonymous. Okay? Practicing in daily life and showing gratitude. Reverend Master Jiu in The Roar of the Tigris, Volume 1, spends quite a long time teaching on just that chapter. There's so much there. So I don't want to kind of read that, because you can read that yourself. It's online and as a PDF on the Shasta Abbey website. But I'll mention just a couple things. In the Shoshogi, he's talking about gratitude. Find the place here. It's in Zen is Eternal Life. It's in the other book. Because of consideration for others on the part of the Buddhas and ancestors, we are enabled to see the Buddha even now and hear his teachings. Had the Buddhas and ancestors not truly transmitted the truth, it could never have been heard at this particular time. Even only so much as a short phrase or section of the teaching should be deeply appreciated. What alternative have we but to be utterly grateful for the great compassion exhibited in this highest of all teachings, which is the very high eye and treasury of the truth. The Sixth Pharaoh never forgot the kindness shown to it, rewarding it with this ring belonging to the three great ministers, and the unfortunate tortoise remembered too, showing its gratitude with the seal of Yofu. If animals can show gratitude, surely man can do the same. That's a question. If animals can show gratitude, surely man can do the same. The Sixth Pharaoh and the unfortunate tortoise are animals to be found in some of the stories that are passed down. The Sixth Pharaoh, someone helped a sparrow that was sick, and later the sparrow was influential in having the person appointed to a high position with the three seals of Yofu. The unfortunate tortoise was a tortoise or turtle that had been caught by a fisherman, and someone bought it from the fisherman and set it free. And when this person was applying for a high position, and they were trying to make his seal, it kept, every time they cast it, it showed a tortoise looking back over its shoulder. And finally they accepted, well, there must be some reason for this happening every time. So that was the turtle, again, showing how the karmic consequence of helping that turtle helped create the conditions for the man achieving this high position. Okay? That's how, those stories are trying to show cause and effect there. That our everyday actions, even when we help animals, it has karmic consequences, and good karmic consequences. It has merit. Okay? Reverend Master Jiu, in that chapter on, which is entitled The Life of a Bodhisattva, also talks about the gratitude of animals, and it's a story most of you are probably already familiar with, but I'll read it anyway because I think it's just so beautiful and kind of really clearly underlies the importance of gratitude. She says, one of the strangest things I can remember was at Ipoh in Malaysia, where there was a little monkey chained on a wall. It obviously loved fruit, and there was a fruit tree, and something in me knew it was longing for it. I'd got a small box of dried apricots that I had bought, and I walked up to it and offered it one, and it ate it. It was so obviously hungry for fruit that I gave it some more. And suddenly, after about the fourth apricot, it grabbed my hand in both its hands. I have never felt gratitude like that. I'd have loved that monkey for a pet. If creatures can feel that gratitude, what can humans do? Just think about it. This was a tiny little monkey, no higher than a foot, with a huge heavy chain around its neck. It just clutched my hand. I have never felt anything go through my body like that, from no human ever. So I gave it the rest of the packet and walked away. And I felt well fed, oddly enough. I felt very, very well fed. It sat there holding the packet in one hand and eating them out. It was just a tiny little box. So don't be surprised if you don't get gratitude, and be pleased when you do, because somebody else is showing the real signs of enlightenment. Showing gratitude of that sort is a real sign of enlightenment. It was the first thing that made it clear to me that animals weren't nearly as dumb as people gave them credit for, and they genuinely did have the Buddha nature, as my master pointed out to me many years later. As I said, there's extensive teaching in the Roar of the Tigress on that chapter on the mind of the Bodhisattva. Another thing Reverend Master G said was that gratitude can be considered the fifth wisdom. In the Shoshogi, the fourth chapter is on the four wisdoms. And she said gratitude, which is the subject of the fifth chapter, can be considered the fifth wisdom. Is that important? Okay. She also often said that gratitude is a sign of enlightenment. Okay, we recite before we have a meal, we recite the Alms verse, which talks about material and spiritual blessings, the two kinds of alms. Often the translation brings out the fact that they're like two wheels, and so we need both wheels to train. We need the material stuff of life, but we also need the spiritual stuff. Okay, the two kinds of alms, they're both necessary. And so when we recite that and we give our thanks for our material blessings, which make it possible for us to train right now, and that's what Koho Zenji was talking about, and when he was talking about cause and effect, we're dependent upon so many external factors for our ability to train. But that's just one of the wheels. We also have the spiritual blessings. And Dogen and other great teachers have often say that the two most important things in life are having a human birth, having that condition, and encountering the Dharma. Okay. Dogen in that last section of the Shoshogi talks about how blessed is this body, how grateful we should be to have a human birth so we can practice the teaching. Okay? We should have great love and respect for the body because it's by its agency that we practice. And having human birth is one thing, and the other thing is that we have the encounter with the Dharma. Kazan says it's rarer to encounter the Tathagata with the mind of gratitude and humility than to meet a tiger in the city. It's even rarer than the blooming of the Udambara blossom. The Udambara blossom is a mythical flower that's said to bloom only every 3,000 years. Okay? And so all of us sitting here, or listening, we've all encountered the Dharma. We all already have a human birth. So we really have everything that we need. Regardless of the conditions, we can practice. We have what's really necessary. Okay? I want to read a short story from Buddhist Stories for Young and Old. This was a collection of short stories by a monk that Reverend Master Chi was familiar with in Malaysia, Venerable Samangalo. And he collected these stories. They were intended for children, but they obviously had great teaching for everyone. And this one is called The Nun and the Stars. Once upon a time, many centuries ago, there lived a very learned, wise, and holy nun in one of the northern provinces of Japan. Her name was Rengetsu, and she was reputed to have been of noble birth. Certainly she was gifted with unusual beauty, and her literary talents were held in high esteem, even at the imperial court. One day the thought occurred to her that, in all her life, she had never known discomfort, and at once she resolved to make a pilgrimage on foot. A short time later she was on her way. Frequently she had to put up for the night in rude inns of remote villages, far from any temples. The food was usually coarse and unappetizing, but she made no complaint. Each morning she started out at dawn, and being of sound health, she managed to walk many miles each day, stopping to pay her respects at every temple, no matter how small, and at every wayside shrine. Then there came a day when she realized that she had taken the wrong road. Night was coming on, and she could see no sign of even so much as a charcoal burner's hut. At last, as darkness fell, she found to her great satisfaction that she was nearing a solitary farmhouse. Immediately she thought of a hot cup of tea, a meal, and a warm bed. But all her anticipations were short-lived. The owners of the house were inhumanly cold persons, and roughly ordered her to be on her way. There being no other houses within sight, she resigned herself to spending the night in the open, and began looking for a sheltering tree. When Rengetsu had found a small tree to offer to afford protection from possible rain, she settled herself on the hard ground and was filled with a sense of sadness and self-pity. Then she looked upward, and her face brightened. With a few moments her mood had changed. A feeling of gratitude came over her. The moonlight made it possible to see, and she got writing materials out of her pilgrim's rucksack. And this is what she wrote. "Oh, how grateful I am to meet with unfriendliness. Now I appreciate the deep value of friendship. How happy I am to have the privilege of seeing a spring night in all its beauty. I'd never before realized how wondrously brilliant the stars are. How fortunate I am to be hungry. In future I shall be truly thankful for whatever food is placed before me. What a favor was done me by the householder who refused me a night's lodging. Now I know that comfort is not just something to be taken for granted." When she returned to her temple at the conclusion of her pilgrimage, everyone marveled at the change that had come over her. She was wiser and more understanding than ever. Moreover, her gratitude for and appreciation of even small comforts was an inspiring example to all who knew her. Well, that's an example of being grateful even for our hardships. I'll close with just another thing that Reverend Master Jiyu said. As I said, she said enlightenment is one of the signs, gratitude is one of the signs of enlightenment. But it's also a means for realizing enlightenment. She said that gratitude is the water that primes the pump of enlightenment. If you've ever worked with a pump, you have to put some water in the pump itself in order to get the water flowing. That water you put in the pump is what draws up the water in the well. Okay? And she said that gratitude is the water that primes the pump of enlightenment. Okay? So if we want to experience the flow of compassion, water of the Spirit, enlightenment, we must practice gratitude. And gratitude in everyday life, and for just the everyday, ordinary things that we have. We can be grateful, and knowing that we have the two great gifts, which are human birth and encounter with the Dharma. So, thank you.